Hello Shadless fans and welcome back to the Walsall Rewind. This time round we are looking back at the month of October. Paul, thanks for joining me again. It's been a busy month in October, 7 games in all competitions for the Saddlers, recording 1 win, 4 draws, 2 defeats in that one. We might as well jump straight into the games. We'll go all the way back to the start of the month, which seems like an absolute eternity ago, and we had MK Dons here at home. A 0-0 draw, second clean sheet of the season, and you're looking at that start of the month and thinking what a fantastic foundation it is to build off then going forward to the other 6 games.
Yeah, like you said, it does feel like a lifetime ago. October's been a really long month, hasn't it? I think 7 games overall, which we'll obviously cover, but yeah, what a long month. And that MK Dons game was on the back of that fantastic victory at Bradford at the end of September. So the team went into it, in good spirits. MK Dons just come from League One. I think it surprised quite a lot of people, considering the season before they'd finished, I think, 3rd in League One, and looked very much like they were going to get promoted to the Championship. Didn't quite work out, and they've ended up getting relegated into League Two. So I think they're always going to be a big scalp in League Two. I know they're not doing particularly well, and I think as things have happened in October, I think Graham Alexander's ended up leaving, so a few problems there. But they're still a very good team. When we saw the team sheet when it come out, names like Jonathan Leake, I think, on the bench. Mo Issa, who's been a brilliant player. I remember him at Cheltenham at this level, absolutely ripping it up. So they've got some really good League Two players. So they were a dangerous team. And it was one of them games, I think it was a tight affair, 0-0, both teams finding each other out a bit. I think MK Dons had a clear way that they wanted to pop the ball about on the floor. Very different to what we saw against Bradford, and very different to what we were going to see coming up in future games in that October. So it was a very unique test, I think, in League Two, and I think it got to the point in that game in the last 15 minutes, is it stick or twist, and it was a very precarious, it felt like it was on a knife edge, and I think in the end, having just beaten Bradford, I think at that stage of the season, still early days, picking up a point and making sure you don't lose the game, probably about right.
Yeah, I think it was one of those where we perhaps came off it, particularly looking at the 2 games in succession of Bradford and MK Dons, where you look at it and go, on paper, if you can pick up points against those two sides that you would probably fancy to be much higher up the table, we walked away from that having picked up 4 points thinking that's a fantastic return. Yeah,
I think, especially if you looked at it at the start of the season before a ball was kicked, you're looking and thinking, Bradford, MK Dons back to back, that's a very tough few days, extremely tough as it's going to get in League Two. Alright, it's transpired that they've not quite had the seasons they'd have expected or where they want to be in the table, but that doesn't mean they're still not good teams, and very difficult tests. And you look at how they've been since they've changed the managers with the same squad of players. Bradford have hit a rich vein of form, and so have MK Dons. So goes to show that picking up 4 points from those games is a fantastic platform, and it shows the team can compete with some of the biggest clubs in the division, should we say, with bigger budgets and, bigger foundations around them.
On Bradford, we didn't mention it last time around in the Walsall Room. We'll give a shout out to Eileen, who looks after the media, the department there. Everybody goes in on the day. The food spread at Bradford was fantastic. It's probably the best in League Two. So if you ever fortunate enough to head into the media room there at Bradford, you'll be treated to pies, chips, sandwiches, sausage rolls, biscuits, cakes, the lot. It was fantastic. So great shout out to Bradford, because they really looked after us on the day.
Always do media wise, yeah, really, really good setup.
Then we went from MK Dons to Sutton. An incredibly long day for everybody involved. That's team, us, supporters who went down there. Credit to the football club for going down there and, supporting, the lads all the way through it. Turned out to be very, very disappointing day, and one that will probably live long for them in regards to it. It was a result that they were so desperate for, and they ran riot in the first half, didn't they?
Shell shock was, I think, how I describe that first half. I want to say thank you and big shout out to the Walsall fans who travelled that day, because not only did they stay behind the team throughout, I didn't hear any negativity during the game, but they actually stayed right to the end, the vast majority of them. And for such a long way, to see your team 4-0 down so early, to have stuck it out in the second half, I think full credit to them. But I'm not surprised because they've been fantastic ever since I've been here. So kudos to the Saddlers fans, man of the match that day. Onto the game, I felt at 1-0 and 2-0, Walsall was still very much in it. It was literally the first two occasions the ball went into the Walsall box, Sutton scored. I think we'd have all half expected Sutton to be, that would have been their get balls into the box, get stuff for Harry Smith to get on the end of. I think we half expected that, and I think Harry Smith was on top form again. Brilliant striker at this level, fits into how Sutton play, and I just think we didn't cope with that in those early exchanges. Found ourselves 2-0 down, but at the same time it was weird because I felt Walsall's general play was good at that point. There were a couple of chances. I think Liam Gordon got into the box a couple of times, had a shot as well. I think Jamil Matt almost got on the end of something. So there were little green shoots. There were a couple of chances at 2-0. I think DJ had a really good chance as well early in the game. So if one of those goes in, and it's a contest, it's nervy, but I think once the second goal went in, I think the Saddlers were very shell-shocked, and Sutton sort of smelt blood and found something where they knew they could exploit Walsall, and they did just that. And Harry Smith, again, I've mentioned, had an absolute field day. He was on top form that afternoon, and goal number 3, goal number 4, and all of a sudden, within the blink of an eye, the game's just taken away from the Saddlers, isn't it? And that second half is very difficult. Sutton will just manage it, and all right, come out second half. I remember a bit of a goal line scramble, and you're thinking, how did that not go in? But it just sort of killed off the game, and it just sort of fizzled out, and it was an afternoon to forget for everyone involved.
They pinpointed the weaknesses of us, though, didn't they, at that point? You mentioned the crosses into the box. It was an early bombardment of that, and we saw it similarly at Wrexham earlier on in the season, where, I think, no offence to the right-backs that we've got at the club, the two Joes, they're not the tallest in stature. So I think, the diagonals towards the back post, particularly in the Wrexham game, where they opened the scoring from that, and then they did it as well at Sutton, where, they pinpointed putting it perhaps on the likes of Joe Riley against Matt Smith, where it's a complete sort of mismatch in that regard. And then they got their joy from it, didn't they? So they'd pinpointed the weaknesses, and like you said, they'd smelt blood at that point. Yeah,
like I said, at 2-0, they did smell blood and found something to target, I guess. Perhaps it's a difficult one. I never actually looked at it like that, but yeah, it's an interesting point. So it was just such a tough afternoon, wasn't it? And I think it's very difficult to come out of that situation once you are 2-0 down. I think I remember the first goal, I think it wasn't cleared, and then the free kicks conceded. Credit to the boy as well. Amari Patrick sticking it in the bottom corner. Second was from a throw-in, and then again the third just balls into the box. It was, I think it just was one of them moments. I think that first 35 minutes just didn't regroup, and the game just never settled for us. And it's just one of them, though. I think you've just got to just write it off, learn from the mistakes, pick up what you need to pick up, and dust yourself down and reset.
Yeah, I think we also said it to Tom Knowles in the last one, where, I think we mentioned the Wimbledon game. Teams are allowed to have off days, as long as they then go and bounce back. And, we moved forward into the Forest Green Rovers game in the EFL Trophy at that point. And whilst it was a loss on penalties, it was a point picked up in the trophy. And I thought on the day, Douglas James Taylor really took his chance quite well in that game.
Yeah, he did. And like you say, in such a long season where you're playing over 50 games, of course you're allowed off days. I think probably say Sutton and Wimbledon have been Walsall so far, haven't they? But onto that Forest Green game, obviously a number of changes in that game. Douglas James Taylor, one of them, and I think himself and Matt Sadler both said after the game that in the first half wasn't quite what they wanted to see. But after taking some instructions from Matt Sadler, he really improved in the second half, didn't he? And really caused problems for Forest Green. And then he moved out onto the left as well, and again showed how he can mix up his game and operate from there and offer a different dynamic. And it was an encouraging display from Douglas James Taylor. And I thought the team, it was again, they're quite unique, those games. Both teams will make changes, so dynamic's a bit different, and they're not because they're players who've not played every single week. It takes them a while to perhaps get going, and felt the game sort of came to life in that second half.
Yeah, Matt Sadler's mentioned it on a number of occasions that he's got different strikers, different horses for courses, and that strikers that can affect games in different ways. And I think Dougie did that in regards to when he went out on the left. You could see him at the end, tracking back to block the shots right at the end. And then we also had DJ coming in, and I think he went in almost as a number 10 in that one. And the link-up play from him then for Isaac's goal at that point was showcasing exactly what the head coach is on about in regards to the strikers can do different roles for the team.
That's it. I think a few weeks ago in a press conference, Matt Sadler told, might have been BBC WM or the Express and Saho, there's more to DJ than goals, and he proved that against Forest Green, didn't he? And I think Matt Sadler wants to see just more of that, like we did see against Forest Green. Really, it's a really good team goal, wasn't it? Isaac's equaliser against Forest Green, and it was a nice little link up with DJ and Hutch with a lovely strike. And as you say, the strikers can play different roles and do different things for the team. And when you knit it all together, they all offer a bit of everything.
Yeah, and then Isaac Hutchinson then built superbly on that strike going into the Gillingham game, and it's a day he will never forget in regards to scoring a hat-trick, and a hat-trick that really rounded off an overall fantastic day for the group, a day for Isaac. It was 3 goals and an assist for him, Freddie also getting on the score sheet. But we've shown again as a group that you can then go out there and perform like that, which is why everyone gets so frustrated when days like Sutton happen.
That's what it was. It was the typical, I think, after getting such encouraging results against Bradford and MK Dons, all of a sudden you go to bottom of the table and you're thinking team high on confidence, just beat a very good team in Bradford, good little run against decent sides, should go to Sutton and hopefully get a victory. It wasn't the case at all, unfortunately, that day. And then you're thinking, Gillingham, high flying, they're in the top 3, and then put 4 past them. It just goes to show exactly what League 2 is this season. I think anyone can beat anyone. The league position, especially at this stage, doesn't tell the story just yet. So it's what happens on the day, and the Saddlers were certainly, I think, started the game very well. I think that was the key. Started on the front foot, got the early goals, and like I say, Isaac Hutch today I'll never forget. Really lovely first goal, sort of caressed it from the outside of the box into that far corner, and then I think he alluded to the fact that he'd never scored more than 1 in a game, had he, in his professional career. And then once he got that second, he was like so desperate to get that hat-trick, and I think was it with the header as well, was it Jamil, Matt? Made sure he left it.
Yeah, and I think it came to Jammer on the goal line almost, and I don't think he was ever going to get that final touch. It was perhaps a yard or so in front of him, but again, we talk about the different courses in regards to the strikers. Jammer showing exactly what he's about when he comes onto the pitch, whether it's for 5 minutes or 50 minutes at that point. But he's turned to hold the ball up to play it out to Ross Tierney, and then Ross's fantastic cross to the back post where Hutch nods it past the goalkeeper at that point shows, the team can be clinical on the day when they want to be.
It was a brilliant cameo from Jammer. That was a really, really good cameo when he was introduced, and it was a really good touch to set Ross Tierney free. And I think he'd done similar at Bradford as well. Come on and had a really good impact and really helped the Saddlers see that game out with his hold-up play and how he used his body and sort of gave the team time to regroup. So don't underestimate his impact, especially off the bench in that game. And yeah, it was just a brilliant day for Isaac, and you could see the emotion in him after the game when he came and spoke to us, when he came out that dressing room, how happy it was. I think it was one of them as well where once the dust settled as well, he could actually take a bit of time to actually reflect on what he achieved that day. Fantastic hat-trick, header as well. He was buzzing with the header, the fact that he scored a header. I think that's something he said in his programme interview that was actually quite standout, the fact he scored a header. And his numbers are good this season, so hopefully he can sort of kick on. Probably not quite had the performances following on, which I'm sure we'll touch on. He would have liked after that hat-trick, but I'm sure he'll get back to producing more magic moments. I've got no doubt about that because he's such a quality player.
And then we talk about building on goals, like Hutch did from the Forest Green game going into Gillingham. Freddie scored in a Gillingham game, and then he goes and has probably his standout game of his professional career in what was a quite chaotic day in the evening in Wales against Newport in a 3-3 draw.
I'm going to steal a phrase Matt Sadler uses quite a lot. It was a ding-dong game. It really was. Friday night, under the lights in Wales, always a boisterous atmosphere at Rodney Parade, isn't it? It's one of the standouts in terms of atmosphere, you know. Low crowd in terms of numbers, you know, they get about 2,000 or 3,000, but they don't have to make some noise, especially in that stand on the side where we are in the press position, opposite where the Sadlers fans are sat. So they really do make some noise, and there's drums, and it is quite a feisty atmosphere. So it's a really tough place to go. Newport got their noses in front after I think the Sadlers made a reasonable start. Just disappointed with the way the early goals were conceded, but this time, unlike Sutton, the Sadlers reacted really well. They didn't panic. They stuck to what they were doing, because I think they had some good bright moments earlier in the game, and they didn't change, they didn't panic. They stuck to what they'd done, and they got the goal. It was a great ball from Knowles on the right, and I felt that was the game where, because obviously he's had troubles with injuries, hasn't he, Tom Knowles, and then suspensions and then illness, just couldn't get his season going. And I think before that point, he just had a couple of games, and I felt like in that first half in particular, I was watching, I thought, Tom Knowles has arrived in this season now. He was causing their left back a lot of problems in that first half, and he got his rewards with the cross that Freddie got on the end of. You could argue a bit of good fortune, perhaps a mistake from the goalkeeper. We've got the hand to it, but it was the equaliser that got the Sadlers back into the game. And I think it was one of those games where whoever scored, it would be the team who conceded who reacted well. Because then I thought Newport reacted well to how Walsall got the equaliser, albeit it didn't really look like scoring, and it looked very much like the game was going to peter out to 1-1 at half time, which would have been good, but then that sucker punch right on half time as well, and Sadlers somehow found themselves behind, and we were probably thinking when we were chatting in the press, how are Walsall losing this? Bit unfortunate. It's been a decent performance, literally from, you take away, I think it was like that half an hour in the middle, it was probably very good from Walsall, and then just those bits on the end of either end of the first half that Newport had their moments. But again, second half come out, Freddie scores a really good goal, really well taken, great little touch, and slots it in that bottom corner, and you're thinking, right, let's go and win this again. And he repeats the same pattern. Newport find themselves 3-2 ahead, but then I thought it was all Walsall, and I think, was it 6 minutes added time? And even as it was ticking to 94, 95, I just thought the goal was coming. I just felt like Walsall going to score here. It's going to come, and it did. And what a moment for Freddie. Last minute, I mean, to be honest, I was doing co-commentary, and I saw Donovan Daniels lash the ball across the box. I thought he'd gone straight in. I thought it was Donovan. It was only when Freddie started celebrating and took his shirt off, we realised it was a hat-trick. And then we get that big moment. Oh my God, he's got his hat-trick. What a moment. The scenes with the fans was brilliant, in the pouring rain as well. Absolutely sodden, but they didn't care because it was a fantastic moment. But when you look back at it now, could it have been a less dramatic day, that Walsall could have got more goals, could have won it, or it was crazy? But you've got to hand it to the lads to come back not once, not twice, but 3 times. Shows there's a lot of character in that team.
Yeah, and I think on the day as well, he probably won't get as much praise for it because the impact may not have been as great in regards to the assists, the goals, whatever. But the introduction of Liam Gordon back into the fold at that point, I think it was at about 70 minutes or so. I thought his energy and his desire and his just what he does on the pitch in those final 26 minutes or so that he was playing. I think you mentioned it in the car ride on the way home, is that teams don't want to see somebody like him introduced to a game because of what he brings to different teams. And I think he was, for me, the reason why we then went on and got a 3rd goal in that game. Absolutely.
Obviously, it's worth noting that he'd only landed back in the country on Thursday, wasn't it? So, fair play after his exploits with Guyana. So, understandable how he perhaps started on the bench. But he'd come on and look fresh as a daisy, didn't he? And, having spoke to him a few times, he's always said, I'm just used to it now with the flying and the travelling. And playing all the games. He's used to it. I think one of the fittest players in the team. He's got bags of energy. He just bombs forward. You know he can beat a man, and he'll have defenders backpedaling when there's tired legs. So those legs were tiring, and like you said, I said it in the car. I just think if you're defending, you're seeing Liam Gordon coming on, you're thinking he's going to be running at me. Not what you want, and I think it was a well-timed substitution from Matt Sadler, and he's been fantastic. I think he's been very consistent for Walsall, Liam Gordon, and the way he's immersed himself in the club, the community, how he interacts with everyone. He's a really good lad, and you know he cares so much. Like, it hurts him missing Walsall games, but it would hurt him just as much missing Guyana games. But the lad just loves playing football. I think if there was genuinely a game every single night, he'd play it. Yeah. As in, like, professional league games, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I genuinely think he'd play it, and I don't think he'd struggle with it. It's one of them. I think he's just got such an engine on him, and it is brilliant seeing him bomb down that left side.
I think as well, from his point of view, having had the incredibly tough start to life here at Walsall that he had with that, you know, horrific injury that he had on the first day of pre-season last year, I think, you know, it took almost a little bit of time for him to settle into life at the club in regards to he was away from the lads, he didn't have the rapport with the fans to start with, but then I think when he came back, everything sort of started to swing into motion for him, and because of his attitude, his desire, his hunger to get back to the levels that he knows he can get to, he's then at that point now where the Guyana caps that he's picked up are a real testament to the fantastic person that he is and the fantastic player that he's becoming as well.
That's it, though. You know, we're desperate to see him out there every single game. Guyana are desperate to see him out there every single game. So, like you say, it's a testament to him and his qualities as a player and his qualities as a person. Absolutely. It was a tough sort of start for him, wasn't it? Obviously, that injury. Then I think he came back, had a few games. Still wasn't quite up to speed. I think he was in and out. And then once he got his place back the second time, it was all systems go. He was motoring. And then obviously had the season break where he didn't really have a break. Went away on international duty again in June. So I think since coming back from injury, it's just been football. So I think he's just in that zone, isn't he? He's that tunnel vision of games, and he's just switched on and on it.
Yeah, and then we have going back to the games now, we have the jubilation of Freddie scoring late on against Newport, to then more jubilation of DJ scoring late on against Crawley, and we're thinking, fantastic, 3 points. And then we have the heartbreak of a 94th minute equaliser from Danilo Orsi for Crawley at home, and it's a bit like, it's one of them where you go from such high emotions to thinking to yourself, well, we've just dropped 2 points there, and it's a win snatched from us right at the death.
That's it. I think first half was a bit of a non-event for both teams. Probably Crawley edged it, but it was all Walsall second half. Really stepped it up and really put Crawley under pressure, and were on the front foot. And yeah, I think you could argue Walsall could have scored earlier. Is it a case of ruining missed chances from early in the game? I felt if we'd have scored 15 minutes earlier, I'd have backed us to go get second. I really would have. But I think, because you score in the 88th minute, I think naturally the mentality is right. So late in the game, see it out, rather than go for the kill and potentially leave yourself exposed trying to get that second goal. So I can understand why in the 88th minute you're thinking, right, okay, probably 5 minutes or so added time. Let's just try and see this out, because I don't think the mentality is right. Let's go get that second goal and kill it off. Unless, like, if we scored 10, 15 minutes earlier, maybe that would have been the mentality. But then I think it comes from a free kick, doesn't it? Debate whether that's a free kick or not from memory. And then Orsi is sort of finds himself 1-on-1, and it's a nice little dink, and it's a late jubilation for Crawley. I mean, credit to them. They found something. They were always in the game at 0-0, 1-0. So got to credit the job they'd done, perhaps preventing the Sadler scoring earlier. And yeah, it was a sucker punch. It was a hammer blow. Walsall deserved to win the game, in my opinion. And I think Walsall should be on 4 more points, personally, because of that game and the Crew game.
And I think DJ coming on in that game, it almost the momentum was building prior to him entering the pitch, and I think it was at that point where we sort of said to each other, sat in the press box, this has got the feeling of a game that DJ's going to score in. Everything seemed to sort of point towards him being the difference maker, and he had a chance perhaps 10 minutes prior to that, and you mentioned scoring. If we'd have scored 10 minutes earlier, we might have gone on and got that second one. Had that chance fallen to him at the start of the season when he scored the 2-2 right at the start, I think he would have probably relaxed a little bit more. He may have just slotted it round the keeper rather than going for pure power at that point, where their keeper had made, I think it was Dye had made 4 or 5 saves in quick succession at that point, and I think had that one gone in, it would have been completely different. But you felt as though DJ was going to get that goal in the game.
Definitely. There was one after that as well. I think a cross just evaded him, just missed him, and if he'd have just got any kind of touch, it's a goal. So it was a bit unfortunate. Yeah, you could argue when you're running for on goal, like minute after minute, week after week, because you're playing 90 minutes every single week, the habits are there and it comes naturally to you. But if you've been in and out of the team and coming off the bench now and then, perhaps you've not been in that scenario in a game as much as you are when you are playing 90 minutes. So of course that comes into it. I'm sure knowing DJ like we do, he'd have felt like he could have had a hat-trick on that game and would have perhaps been disappointed with only the 1 goal. But great to see him back on the score sheet regardless. He's going to be a big player for Walsall. There's no doubt about that. Like, he's going to continue scoring goals, and it's just one of them tough ones to take. It really, really was. It was a sucker punch, but you've got to move on from it.
We then moved into the final game of the month, and I think I said this to Ryan Stirk after the defeat against Mansfield. The Saddlers have shown how they are consistently inconsistent at this point in regards to it, and unfortunately it is another loss, to end the month. It was a game that sort of, I think we said, was split into thirds, wasn't it? Mansfield sort of had the first third, then the Saddlers had a fantastic spell towards the end of the first half. It really, built on it at the start of the second half, got the goal from Ryan, and then I'm not necessarily against the run of play with Bowery scoring a goal, but it's one of those that he gets the lucky bounce off a weak-footed shot that then comes in off the post, and it was a real it was one of those games where Mansfield was sort of expected to win it because of the run they were on, but I felt a draw on the day perhaps may have been a fair result.
Yeah, credit to Mansfield. I think, was it 19, 20 games unbeaten now, stretching back to last season. That's a phenomenal run, and they're a good team. They're really, they're going to be up there this season. I've got no doubt about that. They've finished 8th last season, just missed out on goal difference, got to the playoff final the season before. So they've been knocking on the door big time. And to add a player like Aidan Flint, he playing for a Sheffield Wednesday team that got 96 points in League One last season and eventually won promotion to the Championship. So it certainly raised eyebrows that when Mansfield signed him, that he's ended up in League Two. I think that's a real coup, and he showed his worth, didn't he, on the day? I just felt everything Walsall threw at him, he dealt with it whenever Walsall went direct and a bit long or with crosses. He was there, and I remember saying just before half time, I'd like to see Jamil Matt on. I feel like he could have perhaps pinned himself on Aidan Flint, and that might have created space for others. Give them something to think about. But obviously Matt did come on and it just didn't quite work out. But as you say, I think it was a game of three thirds. Mansfield started strongly and got their goal from a set piece, which I think Matt Saddle will be disappointed that the team had conceded from a set piece. A bit untidy in the way that the goal was conceded. But again, Walsall reacted well and made sure they stayed in the game. It had a field of Salford to it towards the back end of the first half, I think, where Walsall were making sure they stayed in the game, trying to build, trying to just get a bit of possession, and ended the half reasonably well. Come out, start the second half. Okay, Mansfield had a couple of chances, but then Walsall got the goal at a really good time. From the goal, I remember saying, about 10, 15 minutes later, for the first time this game, it's all Walsall. There was a succession of corners, some really nice build-up play involving the likes of Sturck, Tierney. I just couldn't quite open up Mansfield to really test Christy Pym, and I think that was the difference. I think when Mansfield had their spells on top, they did test the Walsall defence a bit better, and Owen Evans, his goal, albeit the goal just came at a time where Walsall were having just that succession of corners, and he sort of shanked it, and it took an eternity to go in. It was, at one point I was like, is this going wide? What is this going to be? As he took a deflection, it was, time just stood still for such a long time, and eventually it's the post and finds the back of the net. And I think Mansfield used their experience. You know, they're a team that's been building for a long time. They've got some really handy players who've been in that team for a while. Ollie Clark, George Maris, Barry's been there a while now. So they're a compact group, and I think they used their experience. Nigel Clough, I thought some of his changes helped them manage the game really well, and that's what they did. They just managed the game, and also didn't really lay a glove on them from there. So I think you've got to credit the way Mansfield managed the game when they were in front, because they're used to that. They've been in front majority of the games in the last 20. So I think their sort of know-how helped them edge it in the end.
Yeah, so 7 games for the month of October. We're going back to something that we looked at last time round in September. Colin Moss, one of the guys who commented on the last rewind, had suggested man of the matches for games, but I think we'll go back to the player of the month at this point for us. For October, who would be your player of the month?
Oof. That's a tough one. I think Hutchinson and Draper have to be in the conversation. It's separating those two. It's tough. I think because I gave it to Freddie for September, I'll go with Isaac.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you for Isaac. Whilst his performances have perhaps, like you say, he's not been able to necessarily build on the 3 that he scored against Gillingham. The performance level is, for him personally, he's probably not been to the standard that he knows he can get to. I still think he's had a fantastic month. Obviously, he scored in the Forest Green game, then scores the 3 against Gillingham. He picks up an assist in that game as well. I think for him, it's been one of those months where he's been a particular standout for the group. So I think we're in agreement that Isaac Hutchinson will win our Player of the Month for October. As always, it's been a busy month elsewhere at the football club. The conference and events department oversaw a large number of successful events here at the Poundland Bescot Stadium, including Bingo Loco, which happened on the night of the 28th of October. That one was enjoyed by over 150 guests on the evening, so well done to them, and we hope everybody enjoyed that night. The team continued to put in lots of work in the build-up to Christmas, with 95% of tickets now being sold for all of our Christmas nights here at the stadium, which is an absolutely fantastic uptake, and there are still a small number of events which you can get tickets for. One event that you can still get involved in the build-up to Christmas is Christmas with the Players, that is happening here in the stadium suite at the Poundland Bescot Stadium. On the night of Thursday, the 7th of December, we're anticipating all of the first team, including some of the first team staff, being in attendance. So if you'd like more information on that one, please contact the conference and events team at events@walsallfc.co.uk. In our commercial department, numbers continue to rise in the restaurant on match days, and we have some great availability in the build up to Christmas. So if you do want to join us for a hospitality package, just head over to commercial@walsallfc.co.uk for more information on those. If you'd also like more information on a player sponsorship, we have a handful of first team members that still need sponsoring for this season. Do contact Adam and Kira at the commercial address there. Going back into those 7 games, Paul, that the Saddlers have played in October, there was a total of 10 goals scored from the group, and I think it's now time to pick our winner for that one. I just want to point out to supporters that You can choose your goal of the month. We'll have a vote over on our official Twitter page. It's brought to you in association with the Yellow Ribbon podcast, who will now be sponsoring all of our goal of the month competitions moving forward for the remainder of the season. We've picked 4 for that one, so the poll will be over there, like I say, on our official Twitter page. So go and vote for that one, and in a couple of days' time, we'll announce the winner of it. But for us, Paul, there have been some good goals scored, and I think you've highlighted the one that I think you're going to pick. But what goal would you choose for October's goal of the month?
So, a couple that stand out to me. I liked Isaac Hutchinson's first goal against Gillingham, where he sort of caressed it, sort of round the defender and into the far corner. I remember him saying after the game he couldn't really remember it, and he's obviously watched it back a few times and enjoyed that one. And then my other one is I really like Freddie Draper's second goal at Newport. I thought it was just I think was it Joe Riley's ball? Yeah, Joe Riley's ball, and he's collected it. Lovely touch to cut inside and then bend it in with his left foot. It was just such, the composure he showed was fantastic. So it's one of them two, and I think I'm going to go with Freddie at Newport.
I think for me, I'm also picking a goal of Freddie's at Newport, but I'm going to pick the third one purely because of the scenes that it created in the away end. I was right down there in the corner for it in the pouring rain, and just to be so close to the group when they were celebrating that with the supporters. I think if you watch the footage back, the Freddie Draper forward roll is now becoming, quite iconic as a celebration. We've got Donovan Daniels trying to do it, failing miserably at it. But if you watch the footage back, Owen Evans does it to absolute perfection at that point. And I think for me, just because of the way the team celebrated and the importance of the goal at that moment in time, I think that's the one that's going to be my October goal of the month.
Absolutely, it's definitely the moment of the month. And you mentioned the Freddie Draper forward roll. I was thinking maybe next time we have a competition on our socials, should we ask the supporters to send in their best impressions of the Freddie Draper forward roll?
I'm sure there's a few of you out there who would like to send one of those in. So if you do want to do that, please just send it over. But like I say, for goal of the month now, you guys can choose your goal of the month over on our official Twitter page. Again, brought to you in association with the Yellow Ribbon podcast. We spoke earlier about Christmas, and there's less than 2 months to go until the big day. I mean, I don't know whether you've got the countdown on, but I know my nephews certainly have. We've got some brand new stock available in the club shop, some of which Paul and I are modelling. All new items are now available both in-store and online, so make sure you go and check them out. We've also got plenty of other offers still available here at the Poundland Bescott Stadium, with a flexi ticket offer still there for you guys to take up. This offer entitles you to come to 6 home games of your choice throughout the remainder of the season. And I know we've big games coming up against Wrexham, particularly over Christmas, Crewe as well. That could be one that is a nice little Christmas present as well. Membership packages are also still available to purchase from the ticket office. So for more information on more ticket offers and membership packages, please call the ticket office team on 01922 651 416 and they'll be able to assist you further. Paul, November is going to be another busy month for Matt Sadler and the team. 6 games coming up in all competitions. We started off with a trip to Sheppey on Friday evening. It's a game that's probably going to be like no other, but one that everybody should embrace in front of the cameras, under the lights as well.
I love the FA Cup. I always look forward to the FA Cup. I think I thoroughly enjoyed it last year. How good was last year? We had my 4 favourite games from last season were all in the FA Cup, so I absolutely love it. What a brilliant occasion it's going to be. Sheppey, they'll probably never known anything like this. It's going to be the best day of their lives, and that's a challenge in itself for the Saddlers, isn't it? Coming up against that, I think the whole nation will be wanting Sheppey to win on the day. Again, that's another challenge the Saddlers have to deal with. I believe it's an artificial pitch as well, so there's a lot of difficult challenges. I don't think anyone can just expect Walsall to go there and roll over Sheppey, no matter what the gap is between the two teams. So it'll be a fantastic occasion in front of national television cameras. Again, it will be an eye-opener. I wonder what the dressing room is going to be like for the players. Albeit, okay, I know League Two aren't exactly the Premier League wonderful dressing rooms, but still compared to that, I imagine what it's going to be like. It could be just a tiny little room with a couple of benches, so it'd be interesting to see the setup and what sort of facilities we'll have as well. Probably no access to power, for example, but again, Sheppey have not welcomed a game of this magnitude before, so it's understandable. But that's what the FA Cup is all about. It's about your David v Goliath type ties and springing a surprise to Walsall. It's just be about being professional, doing the job, and hopefully get the result. And we saw what the FA Cup did for the club last season. I've got no doubt in my mind the players and Matt Sadler will want similar moments again and try and go as far as they can in this competition.
Yeah, and let's hope when we are reviewing the month of November that it doesn't come with a shock right at the start of it. But just want to say a massive thank you to Lee and Tony at Sheppey, who've been fantastic in the build-up to this game. We know just how much you've had to change in regards to the setup for everything for this one. So we hope that you guys enjoy the occasion as much as we're looking forward to it. We'll be back this time next month to review it. We're hoping, fingers crossed, that we can have Owen Evans with us for that one. It's going to be one that he's a bit of a character similar to Tom Knowles, so we're really looking forward to hopefully having him with us. We just want to say a massive thank you again to you guys who are watching us, supporting us on this one. Thank you as always for commenting. If there's anything you want us to review for the month of November, please do let us know in the comment section. And like I've said previously, make sure you go and vote for your goal of the month in association with the Yellow Ribbon podcast over on our official Twitter page. Thanks again, Paul, for joining me. And as always, come on, you Saddlers.